Hello, and welcome to our game, Primordial Clash. Primordial Clash is a strategic battle game which involves 6 elements: fire, water, nature, abyssal, radiance, and havoc. Elements work similar to rock, paper, scissors. Each element has a 1.5 times strength and weakness towards other elements. For example, fire is weaker towards water, so water does 1.5 times more damage, but fire is stronger against nature, so fire does 1.5 times more damage towards nature. At the start of the game, players are randomly assigned one of 6 decks. To decide who gets what deck, make sure you play a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who player 1 is and who player 2 is. Once that is decided, ensure you have a 6-sided dice. This will determine which deck you will get. Before rolling the dice, make sure that all decks are spread out into 6 even piles, and that no deck has been mixed with another. Then, use the number of cards to number each deck. Once you've done this, you may roll the dice. Whatever number you land on will mean you get that deck. So if player 1 rolls a 1, they get deck 1, but if player 2 also rolls a 1, they must re-roll until they get a different number. Then, whatever number that is, they get the corresponding deck. Each deck is built up of 3 general cards, 10 support cards, and 3 field cards. After receiving your deck, you will have time to sort out what team you'll play. You will have to choose one of your 3 general cards, 5 of your 10 support cards, and one of your 3 field advantage cards. Once both players have selected a team, the cards you have selected will be the only ones you use unless another card has stated, and the cards you choose not to use will go into a discard pile. You may choose who goes first, either by mutually agreeing or by playing rock, paper, scissors, or using another method. After you've decided who's taken the first turn, the game can truly begin. Here is an example team. As you can see, there is 1 general, 5 supports, and a field card, which is currently flipped down since it's not in use. The general card is the player's main force. General cards usually specialize in either attack or defense. Generals have 2 moves: a main attack, which is typically cheaper and less powerful, and a secondary attack, which is very powerful. There is also a unique ability, which not all generals have. This can be potentially game changing. Generals also have a HP amount. This can vary from 800 all the way to 1500. Once your general's HP is 0, the game is over, unless a support card revives it. Support cards usually have a singular ability, but there are some which also have a unique ability. These abilities aren't as strong as the generals, but can still have a major effect on the future of the game. The main focus of the support card is to, well, support the general, and ensure that the opposing general dies and your general lives. Very simple. There are 3 types of support cards: attackers, healers, and buffers. Attackers are able to apply pressure to the enemy general by dealing direct or passive damage to the opponent. Healers exist solely to restore their general's HP. It's pretty obvious. And finally, buffers exist to tip the scales in their team's favor, such as reducing the opponent's amount of damage or reducing the effectiveness of their healing. Support types are not explicit, and some cards can both deal damage and heal. Now, you might have heard me talk about direct and passive damage. These are 2 types of damage within Primordial Clash. Direct damage is damage which is directly inflicted upon the opposing general. So, if you do 130 direct damage, the opponent's general will lose 130 HP. On the other hand, passive damage is damage over time. This means the opposing general will take a certain amount of damage over a series of turns. For example, if they take 10 damage per turn for 5 turns, they will take 50 damage in total, but it's spread across a series of turns. Each card is powered by energy points, which is one form of currency within this game. At the beginning of each turn, you will gain 5 energy points, which you can either spend on attacks or abilities, or save to use on much more stronger and expensive attacks or abilities. Again, you'll gain 5 energy points at the beginning of your turn, but that could increase depending on what type of ability you have. Our final type of card is the field advantage cards. These cards are special cards that can only be played once per game. They use another type of currency called field points, and you gain a field point every time you take your turn. The player who goes second is always the first to receive a field point. Field advantages apply special effects to the entire game. These effects range from increasing damage and or healing by a significant amount, increasing energy income, reducing energy cost, or nullifying element effectiveness. Field cards typically cost 8 to 10 field points, depending on how powerful it is, and they can last from 4 to 6 turns.
In order to incorporate meaningful play, we use the formal dynamics known as MDA. This framework has influenced the mechanics, the dynamics, and the aesthetics of our game. Every choice the player makes has a direct and clear impact on the entire match. From the very beginning, when a player receives their deck, they're going to be making choices. For example, what kind of playstyle they're going to use. There is a major strategic potential in deck building. There are a plethora of potential combinations and strategies for players to formulate when deciding their deck. During a match, the name of the game is adaptability. How will they respond to their opponent's choices? How does the other player's actions influence their own strategy?
Our game leans very heavily into encouraging strategic thinking and informed choice making. When designing each card, the idea was to make cards that could clearly draw similarities to cards in other decks, but were unique and synergetic with the other cards in its own deck, to present interesting potential for combinations. When designing the game, we decided it would be best for players if information was kept open. Players are always aware of how much energy their opponent has, how much HP their general has left, and how many turns are left in any active buffs or debuffs. This is done to aid players in their strategy formation. If they're relying on guesswork when making choices, it can be quite frustrating if they make a critical miscalculation due to a lack of information. It also allows players to predict their opponent's next move based on how much energy they have, for instance. When playtesting, we made observations and changes to the game balance to keep everything fair, but open up clear possibilities for player choices. Some cards got complete reworks. After every playtest, the numbers would be tweaked, damage increasing or decreasing, energy cost shifting, and new cards being introduced with direct strategic potential in mind. Tackling complexity has been challenging. The nature of the game is quite complex in itself. To help make it more understandable, I've stuck to a clear theme in my wording of abilities and only included a handful of different types of moves, each deviating in only a minute way.
This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your feedback.